Well, good morning and welcome to the NEWSTART solution to 8 challenging health conditions. We trust and pray that you are doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning. Not very bright outside, but we thank God for the sunshine and the rain. And speaking of thanking God, we should begin with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you again for new are your mercies every day. Great is your faithfulness. And today we are so glad to come into this virtual space to learn more of how we can take care of ourselves with the resources that you've put within our reach. Thank you for the ministry of Dr. Leonard Gibbons and the team. And thank you for all who are on this platform and those who will join. And I trust and pray that you will teach us how to number our days so that we can apply our hearts to wisdom. Bless this program, we pray today in Christ's name, amen. Well, again, welcome. Excuse me. And good morning. I got my morning voice on. We want to thank you. This is our 6th installment, and many of you have been with us from the very beginning, and we applaud you. We put our hands together for you. We cheer you on, and we are over the halfway mark, coming now into the 6th of 8 presentations by Dr. Leonard Gibbons. And we're so glad that he's been very real with us, giving us information that we would actually have to pay for. But this is all free and courtesy of the sponsoring organization. Speaking of sponsoring organizations, we don't want you to forget that those of you who have registered and have been following us from the very beginning or the 3rd week on, you are in line with a certificate. That's right. We want to place in your hand a certificate of accomplishment and that you have been through the program and benefited from the resources. We also want to encourage and challenge you that from the very beginning, we said to you that if you take those quizzes and get that information in, we will have a draw, and the person who gets the quiz right and the person who's drawn will get a courtesy basket, whether it's fruit or vegetables. All right. And that's going to add to your plan, your daily plan of taking care of your health. And so we are excited about that because on September the 5th, I believe, at 4 o'clock, that's right, the program ends on the 29th, but on the following Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock at the Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church, we'd like to put that certificate in your hand and give a gift to the weekly prize winners. So please listen carefully to the questions, get those answers right, submit those things in a timely manner as instructed, and we want to thank you for your presence. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable. It's been a learning experience, and we can't wait to meet you. I've met some of you as I've walked the beach, and you've told me how you're enjoying the program. So I trust and pray that we will continue in the journey. And of course, today, Dr. Gibbons is going to deal with natural approaches to better blood pressure control. Well, without further ado, there is a quiz on the horizon. And so we're going to turn it over to Rosalind Mingo, our Health and Temperance Director, and she's going to give you your quiz this morning. Put your thinking caps on and let's get started.
Thank you, Pastor. Good morning, everybody. Before we get into the quiz, just a note, you should look out for 2 quizzes to be sent to you this week. So there will be 2 quizzes sent out this week for next week. All right, so let's get started. How to live diabetes-free, quiz question number 1. Okay, let me just remove. Sorry, I'm trying to remove all you people out the way here. Okay, diabetes is all, number 1, diabetes is all about high levels of blood sugar to the point where it creates health problems. That is true. Number 2, the normal blood sugar range is 70 to 99 milligrams per deciliter. The pre-diabetes blood sugar range is 100 to 125. The diabetes blood sugar range is greater than or equal to 130. That actually is false. Number 3, the hemoglobin A1C levels are as follows. Optimal is under 5 or 97 milligrams per deciliter. Pre-diabetes is 5.7 to 6.4, and diabetes is 6.5 or 140 or higher. That is true. Number 4, a 1% decrease in hemoglobin A1C can lower the risk of nerve damage, kidney disease, and vision complications in diabetes patients by 37%. That's true. Number 5, type 2 diabetes is an insulin blockage problem, not an insulin shortage problem. That is true. Number 6, the key factors that separated the Pima Indians in Mexico who have very low rates of diabetes from their genetic cousins living in Arizona who have high rates of diabetes include a low-fat, high-fiber diet, greater than 50 grams a day, low levels of obesity, and lots of weekly exercise, 22 hours per week. That is true. Number 7, consuming 60 or more grams of fiber per day is associated with the lowest risk of becoming diabetic based on the graphs in the course handout. That's true. Number 8, the best beans for lowering blood sugar based on research are chickpeas, pinto beans, and black beans. True. Number 9, in a 22-week study that compared a vegan diet to the ADA diabetic diet, the study participants who consumed the ADA diet were more satisfied with their eating plan and lost more weight when compared to the study participants on the whole plant food diet. That is false. Number 10, in one live-in lifestyle change program, after 21 days, 50% of the type 2 diabetics were off all medications and insulin, and their blood sugar levels were in the normal range. That's false. Number 11, a diet low in saturated fat and high in fiber, rich whole plant foods improves cell membrane function, thus increasing insulin sensitivity, which in turn increases blood sugar levels. False. Number 12, regular exercise can prevent 30 to 50% of all new cases of diabetes. True. Number 13, interval training is not more potent at enhancing weight loss than exercising at one level of intensity for the entire exercise session. That's false. Number 14, in one study, for each additional aerobic exercise sessions per week, hemoglobin A1C levels decreased by 0.39%. That's true. Number 15, heat therapy, for example, sauna and a hot tub, reduces the levels of blood sugar, hemoglobin A1C, body weight, and body fat. True. Number 16, increased bright sunlight exposure may be associated with a reduced risk for type 2 diabetes and coronary heart disease because it lowers both blood insulin and blood lipid levels. That's true. Number 17, sleep deprivation is associated with higher baseline insulin and glucose levels and decreased insulin resistance. That's false. Number 18, stress triggers activation of the sympathetic nervous system and cortisol release, which elevates blood sugar levels, leading to insulin resistance. True. Number 19, short, less than 7 hours, and long, greater than 9 hours, time periods of sleep, as well as poor quality of sleep, are associated with increased levels of hemoglobin A1C. That's true. And number 20, deep breathing exercise cannot prevent and/or reverse the release of stress brain chemicals that elevate blood sugar levels and increase insulin resistance. That is false. Thank you so much. If you missed any of the questions to today or answers to today's quiz, you can watch it again at Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church or on YouTube, or Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church on Facebook. Thank you so much. Pastor?
Thank you to our quiz master, Rosalind Mingo. Rosalind, in case I joined the program, I'm not the, didn't start when we all started, and yet I'm enjoying taking these quizzes. How do I send that quiz information back to you all so that Pastor Manders can line up that prize, because they are confident that they're going to be one of the prize winners, having gotten the quiz right because they're paying attention to all the information. So how can I get that quiz, those quiz answers into you? And what is the process, please?
Okay, so you can email your quiz answers into info@somersetSDAchurch.org.
All right, can you repeat that?
Info, I-N-F-O, @somersetSDAchurch.org.
All right, I can imagine someone is taking that information down right now, because they're going to line themselves up for a juicy basket of fruit or a wholesome basket of fresh vegetables. Amen, somebody. Right. Well, it's time now for our Q&A given to us by Rosia Swan. We welcome you, Rosia. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, I'm going to pose the questions from the chat from last week to Dr. Gibbons. So, Dr. Gibbons.
Yes.
This is the first question. And this was posted a lot in the chat. Please clarify, is HbA1c the same as HbA1c? And also, can you tell what they measure?
Okay, both mean the same. It's just European and US. I didn't double check that, so I didn't change, and so that everyone was the same. So hopefully that wasn't too confusing for you, but it basically means the same. What it measures is how much blood sugar is attached to the hemoglobin molecule, right? It tells us how well your sugars have been controlled for the past 2 to 3 months. All right, so of course, the more sugar attached, the more health issue potential. Too much sugar changes the whole shape and function of that molecule. We should have some attachment, but a lower amount of attachment of blood sugar.
Okay, thank you. And the next question, someone had a question about a question from the quiz from last week. 3 out of every 4 adults in Bermuda is obese? The answer was given as false. It was based on a slide that said that 3 out of Bermudians were overweight or obese. Is this true?
Yeah, the way it's worded, when it says 3 or more are obese or overweight, right? And then they give you a percentage. So that percentage actually includes both of them. So when I just put obesity would be a part of that. But when they state both together, this or this is this, then both have to be included in that. So the total amount is both of them, and both of them are there. And because I just indicated obesity, that would be false.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry if it's confusing to you, but I just thought I would just throw something in there.
Yes, thank you. That makes sense. Okay. Moving right along. Okay, someone had a question about figs. It says, I note figs are good for fiber. Do dried figs provide a reasonable amount of fiber?
Sure. I mean, they're going to provide fiber, just like if it was, fresh figs, each fig is going to have the same amount of fiber, just that the water was absorbed. I mean, the water is taken out, most of the water from the dried figs. So both will provide, a healthy amount of fiber, which is beneficial for a number of things. Now, on a side note, however, when we look at cholesterol levels, actually they compare individuals that had apples with individuals that had figs. And their cholesterol went down on the apples, but not on the figs. So apples had a type of fiber in them that actually is more effective for lowering blood cholesterols than figs. So apple would be a better choice for lowering cholesterol levels.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there any way to find out if you are still producing a good amount of insulin, or if your ability to produce the insulin has decreased?
Right. There's a test called C-peptide. There's a fasting version of it, and there's another version where you challenge the person with, I talked about consuming 75 or 50 grams of glucose. C-peptide is the test. A fasting C-peptide between 0.5 and 2 nanograms per milliliter is a normal range. If the range is less than that, you may not be producing enough insulin. If it's higher than that, you may be experiencing an insulin sensitivity. We talked about that. A high-fat diet, the body's producing more than enough insulin, but the sugar's not getting into the cell because the excess fat is coming up the whole situation. So C-peptide level will let you know, because even someone who is non-insulin dependent, or they are type 2 diabetic, well, if they continue on, for years, that way it could come to the place where the body has stopped producing insulin even for them. And so even though they've adjusted their diet and all of that, their sugar levels could still be running higher, because the beta cells that produce the insulin are no longer functioning. So a way to do that would be the C-peptide test. All right, so that will let you know if you're producing enough insulin.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Gibbons. All right, next question. Would walking in place followed by squats be an example of high intensity or low intensity exercise?
Well, just the walking, you know, it's not, if it's not really intense, it's more of a low intensity. But then the squats would sort of increase the intensity. I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that, but if you're wanting intermediate exercising, intermediate. So where you're doing low intensity followed by high intensity, probably, I mean, I guess you could do that, but probably another way, a better way of doing it from my perspective is to get out and walk, you know, strolling, and then push that intensity up, and then go back to strolling, and then go back up. So the up, down. That's my thoughts on a good way to do this interval type of training.
Okay, and okay, so this is a something that I felt should be a question. Taking St. John's wort with ginger, lemon, or lemongrass, would that be a good benefit?
You know, any number of combinations of herbs would be of benefit. Now, St. John's wort is usually taken for depression and anxiety and things of that sort, you know. Mixing it with ginger and lemongrass, you know, that's fine. That tastes north. If you're just taking it just as an herb, that's one thing, you know. But if you have a specific health problem, that's totally different. In that case, there are a certain therapeutic level. You follow me? So if it's for a therapeutic purpose, you know, there's an amount and there is a frequency you should take it. There may be a better time to take it. And so that's different than with just generally taking it. You know, therapeutically, it could be 3 times a day. It could be every 2 hours, you know, if you have an acute condition, versus just a cup of tea that I you know, a nice relaxing tea, or I like it. So it's different depending on your purpose.
Okay, yeah, someone had suggested taking it for chemotherapy.
I'm not sure as to what your rationale for taking it. If it's anxiety related, depression related, or something of that sort, it may be a benefit. It does have a substance in it, in some forms of the St. John's wort that may decrease the availability of certain drugs. So it's important to know exactly what you're taking. When I think of cancer, I think of more other types of herbs like turmeric or boswellia, frankincense, and then the immune stimulating types of herbs. But I generally don't think of it in terms of someone who's on chemotherapy unless it's for anxiety or depression.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gibbons, for answering our questions. And remember, people, to post your questions in the chat, and we will answer them next week.
Thank you, Razia, and thank you, Dr. Gibbons, for those answers that we are benefiting from. And without further ado, those of you are ready now for our instructions from this seminar. Dr. Gibbons is speaking about natural approaches to better blood pressure control. Thank you, Dr. Gibbons.
Thank you. There, members. Okay, well, we're gonna talk about, oops, did I do it right? All right. All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to talk about blood pressure. Doesn't mean that, you know, you have a lot of pressure, you're stressed, so your pressure's up. Could be, but not necessarily. And in fact, your pressure could be up and you could feel perfectly fine. You could be walking along like, you know, everything's well, and your numbers could be through the roof. Others could have headaches or other indications, but the presence or absence is not necessarily an indication. So we're going to talk about blood pressure today. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, if you are serious about blood pressure control and you're going to make some big lifestyle changes, and that is the same as it relates to blood sugar, there are some things you need to be aware of and take. Check your blood pressure daily. And the importance of checking your blood pressure daily is because your blood pressure could drop too low, and that's not good. You could faint. So you want to check your blood pressure, I would say first thing in the morning before you get up and do anything else throughout the day, and maybe towards the end of the day after you have rested for a good 15 minutes, do some deep breathing exercises to make sure your blood pressure is at its resting level. Assess your risk of low blood pressure. You are at risk if you take blood pressure medicines and you have pretty low blood pressure readings already. And we're gonna give you an idea of what healthy blood pressure reading is, okay? So let's say 120/80 or less than 120/80 is ideal blood pressure range, and your blood pressure range is even lower than that, much lower than that, and you're taking medication, and then you adopt some of the suggestions we're going to be sharing today, it could drop it even lower. So you need to be aware of these things. Maybe good to make an appointment with your doctor, discuss safety and medicines. They may not even think that what you're doing will make a big impact, or they may, depending on their awareness. But you yourself, you need to check your blood pressure. So let's say your blood pressure is on the lower side and you're feeling sort of faintish, dizzy or what have you, and your numbers are really low, definitely call your doctor. And if you can't reach him, your numbers are real low, and it's your time to take the medication, it's safer not to take it than to take it, to force it to go even lower, okay? Until you can make contact, and you may say, cut the dosage in half, and let's see how it goes. So can't reach him, numbers are low, you're feeling a little dizzy or anything like that, then pull back from it, you should be fine. Okay, watch for signs, and these are some signs: tired, lightheaded, headedness, fainting. All right. If you're on warfarin, this is blood clotting. It helps to affect your blood, the rate at which your blood clots. So if you're boosting your vegetable intake, it can reduce its effectiveness, such as green leafy vegetables. So it doesn't mean that you can't have them, but it's important that you speak with your doctor and let them know, I would like to consume more green vegetables. Can we adjust the intake of my warfarin based on those adjustments? But of course, whatever adjustment, you need to be consistent with what you're doing. It's not like you go from no green vegetables to, a plateful. Then another day you go back to no. You need to be consistent with what you're intaking, because your warfarin dosage is adjusted based on certain levels in your blood. And so just be consistent, and that's the important thing. If you're on insulin, diabetic medication, in fact, you started last week to make some adjustments, definitely look at your numbers and adjust your medication accordingly, especially if it drops really low, it's at 70, or it's getting lower than that 60, 70 to 99 is a good range. It could be even better, 70 to 85. That would be even better. So on the lower side, as long as you're feeling great, everything is working well. There's no signs you're not jittery, you're not sweating, your numbers are not dangerously low. Okay, so check that. Exercising vigorously. Be aware if you have unstable heart disease or at risk for fall. So consider all those things. And generally, if you're going to make a big change, it's important to check with your doctor and start out, slow, and then work yourself up as you go along. All right, so these are the ranges you see. Normal, you see less than 120, and diastolic less than 80. So the systolic is when your heart muscle contracts and forces that blood through your blood system, your circulatory system. After the heart muscle contracts, forcing the blood out of the chambers of the heart fills up again with more blood. And as it fills up again, you still have a level of pressure in your bloodstream, but it's not as high as the pressure when the heart muscle was contracting. And so that's the diastolic, that's the lower number. So the heart muscle is relaxed and refilling. It's a low number diastolic. It's the high number systolic when the heart muscle contracts. You see elevated 120 to 129. And then you see the high blood pressure of stage 1, and you see stage 2, and you see crisis. Consult your doctor immediately. Systolic over 180, and or your diastolic is 120 or higher. All right, so those are indicators you need to do something really, contact your doctor, let them know what's happening. We don't want you to end up with, stroke, heart attack, or any sort of thing with these high numbers. Okay, so those are our numbers. Now, this is important. These are some factors. So make sure you abide by these to ensure that you actually have a true resting blood pressure reading. Empty your bladder, because a full bladder, your pressure is higher. Don't compensate, don't talk while you're getting your blood pressure, it can go up. Correct cuff size, you can see that. And on the actual cuff, it'll tell you the size of your arm, and based on whether it should be a medium cuff or large, or even larger. Support the arm at heart level, keep legs uncrossed, and support the back and the feet. So all of these are factors that are important to ensure that what you're measuring is a true reading, because the one thing you do not want to do is, measure it and it's saying it's high, but it's not really high. It's high because you're not following these principles, and then you're adjusting medication and all of that based on faulty readings. So what numbers will indicate that you are at risk for a heart attack and stroke? And this is looking at relative risk, optimal level of systolic blood pressure. For this graph, you can see 110 to 119. And you can see normalish, probably not quite normal. And you can see 120 is going up, 130, 140 and above. So you can see after 110, to 119, the risks start to increase. So we want to keep that number as low and safe as possible. Kidney failure, another major factor related to high blood pressure. It damages these delicate mechanisms of the kidney, and you can end up with loss of kidney function, kidney failure. And you see here 120 over 80, And then you see as the numbers go up, and the highest is 159, over 159, systolic, 90 diastolic, and you can 99. So high blood pressure readings, you really want to do what you can to pull those numbers down. It can result in kidney failure, which is not a wonderful thing, going for dialysis, 3 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week, hours. This is not something you want to do. It's a very costly procedure. And what we want to do is keep our kidneys functioning well. So it's important to help to in that process in terms of blood pressure. Okay, so that's one of those factors. In terms of longevity, the higher your blood pressure, the shorter your lifespan. This is a study looking at 45 men who were 45 years of age, many years of life in 45-year-old men. You can see 20.5 years average for blood pressure, 150 over 100, 32 additional years for blood pressure, 120 over 80. So just the blood pressure itself is a predictor of how long you can live, a person can live. Now, if you look at this slide, this is a little old, but it highlights a point. This is 2009. Leading cause of death, in this example, was the third leading cause, followed, smoking, overweight, and high blood pressure. It's closer to number 1 right now, looking at some updated statistics. So it's definitely a factor you want to take note of. And the real issue, as I've been talking from the whole start, is not the blood pressure itself, but the blood pressure is responding to our vascular system. And it's a plumbing issue. If your plumbing pipes, that is your blood vessels, are corroded, if they're stiff, if the blood is thick, if there's too much water retention in the body, if you're stressed out too much, too long, you're not sleeping well, you're not active, all of these are factors that the body has to adjust to, which can cause your blood pressure to increase. If you fix all of these, or can fix nearly all of these health problems, then your body will respond by the blood pressure going back down. So it's like a thermostat. You have a cooling and heating system in a building. When it gets hot, the coolness turns on. When it gets cool, the heat comes on. So it adjusts based on the temperature in the room. Your blood pressure adjusts based on the health of your blood vessels and the other lifestyle factors that you are either practicing or not practicing. So we want to do what we can to balance that out naturally, and then make adjustments in medications over time as the numbers come to the real ideal blood pressure readings. Now, treatments start with lifestyle. Now, this is a basic start of a treatment protocol that comes through the American Heart Association, the American College of Cardiology, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. So at systolic blood pressure, if you look across to the left, 140 to 159, or diastolic 90 to 99, stage 1, lifestyle modification, as a trial considering adding thiazide. This is a blood pressure medication. Recheck, and review readings in 3 months, and then you go from there, and it goes down. I've just looked at the first level. If it's greater than 160, or diastolic greater than 100, stage 2, and it talks about drugs, along with lifestyle modification. We check review readings in 2 to 4 weeks. If it's, okay, yes, no, then you do other things. So the whole idea is you start with the basics. You add a medication if it works. Lifestyle doesn't seem to be working, they add a medication. If you have the lifestyle and the medication, it goes back to normal, then ideally you probably should be able to make some adjustments. But what happens in most people is a number of people commonly, 3 drugs are commonly needed to achieve good blood pressure control. Now remember, these are people who by and large are not making all the type of changes that we're going to be talking about today. And many of them are actually practicing the lifestyle practices that are actually creating the problem in the first place. So if you're not changing your lifestyle, you have to be taking the drugs for life. All right, so, but it's good news. There is something that we can do. And we're going to talk about some amazing lifestyle factors that can help in this whole process. But let's talk a little bit about the medications themselves. Not all blood pressure drugs are created equal. Now, this is some advice that I just want you to take a note of. ACE inhibitors and angiotensin receptor blockers. These are medications that reduce the risk of diabetes. So they have some benefit outside of just lowering blood pressure. Hydrochlorothiazide. Now, this particular medication has high side effects, low efficacy, so it's not as effective, and it increases the risk of diabetes. And now the top 3 recommended blood pressure medications, as you can see here, the ACE, ARBs, calcium channel blockers, and the diuretic pronunciation, not good at that, but you see it there. That's the best diuretic medication. Now, the best time to take blood pressure prescription is at night. Based on a number of studies, and you see them listed there, the abbreviations, 59% lower risk of diabetes, 67% lower risk of heart attacks, and 73% lower risk kidney disease by taking the medication at night as opposed to taking it at any other time of the day. Our bodies are amazing. They work on what we call circadian rhythms. These are 24-hour cycles. And if you remember way back in the beginning, we were talking about cancer and about taking cancer drugs and how that there are certain times in the day or during the night where it's more of a benefit and other times where it's actually more of a health risk. So blood pressure medications taken at night are a better time. And in fact, that's going to be one of your quiz questions. So I'm giving you one of the answers right at the top. So the best time is at night. All right. Now, what about benefit to taking blood pressure medication to reduce the risk of heart and stroke prevention? So individuals who've had a post-MI, if you look at the first to the far left, you see pravastatin. This is a statin drug for cholesterol lowering. Post-MI, a myocardial infarction. So someone had a heart attack or they had unstable angina. So you start moving and then you get these chest pains and it's just not stable. And the median cholesterol, you see 5.6 millimole per liter. If you go over to the right, 5.6 far right, you see that in white, right down towards the bottle, is equivalent to 216 milligrams per deciliter. That's a cholesterol. That's a elevated total cholesterol level. So the cholesterol is high. They've had a post-MI or they had unstable angina. The next column over, you see study, then you see mean treatment duration. So 6 years. And how many people? The next column, 9,000 individuals. So then they looked at the outcome. After 6 years, they were taking these medications, this cholesterol-lowering medication. In this example here, all deaths. And I just want to go right across to the far end, and that's absolute risk reduction with treatment. So 3%. And that means basically 3 out of 100 of people were benefited. Okay. So less than 5% of individuals, they actually all deaths or any heart attacks. So the risk of heart attacks and deaths, all deaths from all causes, was only benefited in 3% of these individuals. So the best preventative is lifestyle change. The best preventative in this example here is not the drug. And what tends to happen, which is not good, is people tend to think, I've taken the medication, so I'm okay. And they go along and they continue with the same lifestyle practices they had before they had the MI or the unstable, high cholesterol. They think, just take the medication and I will be fine. Not necessarily so. The next study down, preventative, again, another the same type of cholesterol lowering drug. And you can see here, over 6,000 individuals, about 5 years, and all deaths decreased by only 0.9%. Absolute risk reduction. That means this is out of 100. Relative, that's not really helpful for us. But we want to know, what are your personal chances of lowering your risk? And not even 1%. Coronary events, not more than 2.3%. So that's not a good thing. That's not even 50-50, 50% chance. This is 2%, 2 in 100. So definitely don't want to depend on medication for prevention. We want to focus more on the lifestyle, what we're going to be talking about. Another drug, you said this is actually the blood pressure medication, Ramapil. This particular study, you see over 9,000 participants, 5 years. It relaxes the blood vessels. That's the purpose of this particular medication. And even though they took this medication for over 5 years, only 1.8% reduced risk of death. And from heart attacks, only 2.54% lower risk. 2 in 100 people would actually benefit. And Enalapril, another blood pressure medication, was 1%. So you can see, and this I put in there because it's important that you realize that do not assume that because you're taking a medication, everything is fine. And I can tell you the number of people who come to see me, I'm taking my medication, I'm okay, but they're not okay, and the truth be told, the number one cause of circulatory, when we take strokes and heart attacks combined as a death rate, is the number one cause of death in Bermuda. So all these people are taking medications, yet still, the number one cause of death. So just taking medications is not enough. In fact, is not really addressing the underlying cause. So the question is, so the blood pressure machine relaxes the blood vessels. So my question is, what can we do to relax the blood, the arteries naturally? And so we're going to be talking about that as we go along. Here are some more studies looking at the same thing. And as you can see, in one example, let's look at the second one down. Aspirin, antiplatelet drugs, 3.5% less vascular events, 27 months, 20,000 people. That's a lot of people. They had a heart attack. They gave them aspirin. They gave them antiplatelet drugs to prevent a second one. But the reduction in vascular events was only decreased by 3.5%, 3.5 of a person in every 100 benefited. So this is important. We need to do more than just focus on drugs. If you go down, aspirin, there's another one, aspirin antiplatelets. And then the next one down was hypertension, diastolic blood pressure, 90 to 109. And you see the reduced risk was 0.06, all death and stroke, 0.6. However, there was a significant benefit if the diastolic blood pressure was 150 to 129. So higher blood pressure, the medication actually worked, a 36% decrease absolute risk reduction. So the benefit was at the higher diastolic blood pressure range, not at the 90 to 109. So 115 to 129, and I would guess even higher than that, would be the point where we really see some benefit from the blood pressure medication. All right, so let's focus on lifestyle. Let's not think that because I'm taking the medication, I'm okay, I'm on blood pressure medication, I'm on cholesterol medication, I come to the office, the doctor measures the numbers are okay. So the next year I go and do the same thing. I don't exercise, don't change my eatings really, but somehow the medication's keeping my numbers down, but my risks are still high. So let's talk about some things that we can do. Before we go there, side effects, just think about it. You can look at this list. I mean, the names, you may not understand all of them, but constipation, gas, vomiting, back pain, hot flashes, weight gain, insomnia, anxiety. Listen, there are a number of risks associated with blood pressure, various blood pressure medications. And long-term benefits are not, really that high. So we want to adapt some lifestyle things, and we're going to talk about what they can do. And here are a number of others. So you take a look at it. And if you're on blood pressure medication, take a look and ask yourself, do I have any of these problems? You can look it up, type it in on the internet if you don't understand what the word means. And you can get that answer in less than 30 seconds. Just go to Google, type in the word, and then the what it means will come right up. So it's important that you, take charge. Don't assume that because you're taking medication, they say you're okay, you're okay. You're only really okay if you're following the principles of NEWSTART, living the lifestyle that follows the laws of health that God has created for us, that we may have life and that we may have it more abundantly. So what is that lifestyle modification that was indicated in that original, when we started out in this presentation? that guide, that treatment guide that doctors follow. What is the lifestyle? Well, the lifestyle factors that are most promoted are these: weight loss, sodium restriction, decrease your salt, exercise, and the DASH diet. Okay, this is what you see here. This is the DASH diet. So you can see here the grain, 6 to 8 servings. The left top, let's go clockwise. Fresh fruits and vegetables, 4 to 5 servings of each per day. So here you see in this DASH diet, it's about 10 servings of fruit and vegetable a day. Now, there's a reason why they actually have a lot of fruits and vegetables in this diet. And you're gonna understand where it came from. All right. And this is important because, a lot of doctors will even when they send patients to me, they will indicate the DASH diet, that they're hypertensive. And it has benefit, but we're gonna discover an approach that's even better than the DASH diet. Okay, and then you got low-fat dairy, 2 to 3 servings per day. I want you to remember that, because we're gonna take a deep dive. And then you've got limiting fats and sweets. That's a good thing. Legumes or beans, peas, lentils, nuts and seeds, 4 to 5 servings per week. Okay, now that's not as much as I would advise. And we talked about diabetes last week, and you're talking about servings of legumes every day. I mean, a couple of servings. If your blood sugars are way up, and they're saying 4 to 5 servings a week. So a lot more fruits and vegetables, throwing in some legumes and nuts and seeds, and I would include nuts and seeds daily, and legumes daily, and lean meats, 6 or less servings per day. 6 or less servings per day. I'm thinking it's more 6 or less ounces per day. That's what we're looking at. 6 or less ounces of lean meat per day. Definitely not 6. 6 servings would be a ton. It depends on what we're talking about here. We're talking about an ounce, but we're talking about 6 ounces. Just look at it. Let's look at it from an ounce perspective. 6 or less ounces a day would probably be what we're really looking at here. All right, so let's move on. Now, what's 3 ounces? 3 ounces is a deck of cards size. So 6 ounces would be 2 decks. Okay, this is what I'm looking at it from that perspective, from ounces perspective. Looking at a full serving of 3 ounces, 6 being 2. All right. Now, let's go back farther, okay, 1920s. Researchers measured the blood pressure of 1,000 native Kenyans who had a diet centered on whole grains, beans, fruit, and dark leafy vegetables. Now, these individuals, from time to time, they had some animal-based products, but they were very minimal. Not something they could afford to have a lot of. So they had principally whole grains, beans, fruits, dark leafy green vegetables. All right, so they were vegetarian, vegan, essentially. Now, let's look at some results. Kenyans, up until age 40, look at the blood pressure, average blood pressure, 125/80. Western Europeans and Americans, 125/80. Let's look at by age 60. You see something really strange looking here. The Kenyans, their blood pressure averaged 110/70. The Western Europeans and Americans, 140/90. Okay, this is looking way back in the 1920s. Now the question is, Why would the blood pressure go down as you get older if you're on the plant-based diet? Yet on the animal-based diet, the arteries are actually, the blood pressure is actually going up. And that's amazing. I'm not clear of all the indications as to why the blood pressure would get lower. But one of the reasons why it's going to be lower is because these foods help to relax the arteries, right? Help so that the arteries do not become stiff. The individuals tend to be lean. They tend to be very active. You know, they live off the land. You know, they work from morning to night. And this is rural Kenya. This is rural Japan. This is rural China. When you look at these rural Mexico, you know, the cultures that live largely off plant-based foods, work the land, these individuals have very low blood pressure, and their sodium intake tends to be very low. Now the Western Europeans and the Americans, the blood pressure going up. Why? The arteries are getting stiffer. You know, the too much body weight, too much sodium, too much fluid retention. The blood is thicker, and the heart has to work harder. Living in very stressful environments, not very active, eating highly refined processed foods. All of these things driving the blood pressure up. So let's look at some recent studies that compare the systolic blood pressure that we talked about on the top of the chart, and then the diastolic, the lower number, on the bottom of the chart. Now, to the right of the lighter portion, you see the darker portion. And you see right to the left on the top says foods and nutrients, and at the bottom it says Frank and Sachs, MD. I want you to remember his name because Frank Sachs has everything to do. He's the lead author in the DASH diet. Okay, he was the lead author in the DASH diet. And this is some research that was conducted before the DASH diet was created. And as you can see here, to the right, you see East Boston, Framingham. Framingham was a city in town in Boston that did these famous studies that looked at cholesterol levels and have a lot to do with the advice given in terms of cholesterol and heart disease. And you can see the systolic blood pressure. It's 16 to 20, 32 to 39, and then 40 to 65. And you can see the blood systolic going up, and you see the level of the systolic. Now, when you come to lacto ovo vegetarians, these are vegetarians, they consume milk and maybe eggs. About lacto, so they're basically milk. These are vegetarians that consume milk. And so their blood pressure, systolic, you see, is lower. And then the strict vegetarians, it's even lower. And you can see the number is under 110. Isn't that amazing? Let's look at the diastolic. Framingham, you see that's higher. East Boston, lower. Lacto-ovo vegetarians, lower. And then strict vegetarians, even lower. So what Dr. Frank Sachs discovered was the closer the diet came to a plant-based diet, the lower the overall numbers were. The conclusions were fruit and vegetables were the food groups of the, now I'm getting ahead of myself. I put this piece in here. But being that I put it here, I'm going to explain what it meant. Now, we know that the DASH diet lowers blood pressure, but the conclusion was, what was the factor in that DASH diet? Was it the fact that they had dairy with it? Was it the fact that they had lean meats? Well, once they analyzed the impact of the different components of the diet, their conclusion was the blood pressure lowering effect of individuals on the DASH diet was due to the fruits and vegetables. None of the other components of the diet were associated with a blood pressure decrease. It was only the fruits and the vegetables. Now, the diet design goal of the DASH diet, and this is the study itself. In fact, this study was conducted around the same time that I was at Loma Linda University School of Public Health, and I was doing a study on blood pressure. And my results came out actually before the DASH diet results came. And my results were just as good as the DASH diet. And I'm going to talk about mine in a few minutes. Now, the DASH design goal were to create patterns that would have the blood pressure lowering benefits of a vegetarian diet, yet contain enough animal products to make them palatable to non-vegetarian. So Dr. Sachs came to the conclusion, listen, we know that the plant-based diet is the best, but not much people, we don't think a lot of people are going to want to follow it. So what we're going to do is try to mimic it as much as possible so we can get some blood pressure lowering effects, but people can still consume their animal-based diets, but less of those foods. So that's the design, that's the purpose of it. The best overall is the whole plant food, but the DASH diet is sort of to make it palatable to non-vegetarians. Now, what they actually discovered were, interestingly enough, that lacto-ovo-vegetarians, you can see here, you can see the diastolic blood pressure. And the more dairy, the higher the blood pressure. The less dairy, the lower the blood pressure. So they actually showed that people who consume dairy actually have higher blood pressure than those who do not consume dairy. So this is what they actually showed in the study. So at the Adventist Health Study, which is a study that looked at thousands of Adventists. It started actually in Southern California, and the U.S. government over the years has been studying. They spent millions of dollars looking at Adventists because Adventists have a variety of different diets, everywhere from total plant-based to consuming dairy, to consuming eggs, to consuming meat products. No alcohol to very low alcohol, no caffeine, very low. So because of our unique diet, they have been studying Adventists, and I've already shared with you that Adventists who most closely follow the NEWSTART principles actually are among the oldest living people groups in the world today. So here we go. A comparison of Adventists. And let me just read this statement. Vegetarian diets compare protection against cardiovascular disease, cardiometabolic risk factors, some cancers, and total mortality. So risk of dying from all things combined is lower compared to lacto-ovo. Lacto is dairy, ovo is eggs. Vegetarian diets, vegan diets, offer additional protection for obesity, hypertension, type diabetes, and cardiovascular mortality. So the vegan diet is even more powerful at helping these various conditions. So there is benefit to consuming the dairy and eggs and plants over meat, eggs, dairy, and plants. But all plants is better than either of these choices, especially for weight, hypertension, diabetes, and death from heart disease. And we've talked about heart disease, we talked about diabetes, and we talked about obesity, and now we're dealing with hypertension. So you can see here the relative risk, decreased risk. Lacto-ovo-vegetarian, you see relative risk of hypertension, and basically this is 55% decreased risk for lacto-ovo-vegetarians, but for vegans, a 75% decreased risk of hypertension. So that's what it means, what we're talking about 75% versus 55. So which you want. So the goal is to work towards more whole plant foods. There's nothing better than a whole plant food diet. It's better than consuming dairy and eggs. And if we were to put in the Adventists that consume meat, their risk would be even greater. So as you go from a meat base to dairy and eggs to all plants, the risk decrease for all health problems. Now, let's look at a few studies that address this question of nutrition. Now, on a low-fat, whole plant food diet, 500 participants. They were on the Livian-McDougall program. Their baseline blood pressure, and that's what I was looking at, 140, greater than 140/90. This group experienced an average blood pressure reduction of 17 points systolic, 13 points diastolic after 11 days. Now, that's amazing. That's lower than you would expect in medication. No medication is not going to drop the blood pressure that tremendous within 11 days. Now, Dr. McDougall, he's familiar with the Daniel diet in the book of Daniel. And Daniel said, give us 10 days, then look at us, and then look at those that have the king's meat, and they were 10 times, better. They were healthier, and as a result of following the plant-based diet. And here is a Libyan program. Is actually about an 11-day program. He rents out these spa-type facilities, and so the guests come. They get physical. They go to classes, and they have a plant-based diet. That's it. He doesn't give them herbs and water therapy and a number of other things. It's more diet focused than anything else. But here you see this tremendous drops in blood pressure on a whole plant vegan diet, big salads, lots of greens and all sorts of things. So that are of plant nature, and this tremendous drops. Now, this is the study I did when I was at Loma Linda in 2000, the year 2000. It was a 6-week study, and they had on average 2 bananas a day, 3 ounces of raisins, these 2 ounce, 1.5 ounce packs. Actually, we got the raisins from California Raisins, the bananas from Dole Fresh Fruit Company, and the orange juice, which is the third component, 2 cups of orange juice a day from Agrigo Juice Products. All of these were companies in California that donated these supplies, these food supplements for the study I did. What I did is I screened individuals from African-American churches. These were Sunday churches. And we came up with individuals that met the criteria for the studies. So half of them were in the control group. They didn't get the supplements, the food. The other group had the supplements. And all I told them was to add these to the diet. Now, they didn't have any blood sugar issues. They didn't have any other health issue. They had a mild blood pressure range. So what we did, so they had the orange juice. My idea was to make it very easy for them to add, increase the level of a mineral called potassium, as well as magnesium. And these foods were high in potassium and, a relative amount of magnesium in the raisins. But what I had discovered when I was looking at the research literature is that African Americans tend to have low intakes of fruits and vegetables, low intakes of potassium. And in these studies, they were giving them potassium supplements, and they were showing blood pressure lowering effects. So I said, you know what? I'm going to help them increase their potassium level by just giving them foods. And I said, I'm going to use fruit because fruit is, it's easy. They peel the banana, eat a few of that. And so what happened was I said, all I want you to do is add this to your diet. I don't want you to change your exercise or anything else. Just do this and look at the results. This is a 6-week study. And you can see -13 over -7. Now, I didn't tell them to stop eating any of their other foods. They could eat whatever foods they were eating. But before they could eat all of that, they had to first consume all of this. So what actually ended up happening is they end up displacing some of the foods they would have normally eaten to make sure that they consume these foods. And as a result, their blood pressures decrease significantly. Now, I would not advise people to, drink a gallon of orange juice. I would be more inclined to encourage them to eat whole oranges, eat bananas, eat beans, eat other foods that are higher in potassium, because some of them were saying, after eating all these bananas, this amount of bananas, I'm tired of eating bananas. So you don't want to create an environment where it's very, you get tired of it. You want to have variety. So we can raise potassium and magnesium levels by eating a variety of foods rather than just these 3. But for the study purposes, to make it easy, to boost those numbers, this is what we did, and we demonstrated a significant decrease in blood pressure. In fact, this is very similar to what the DASH diet did. All right, so they were still consuming meat in the DASH diet, and they were still consuming meat in my study diet, but they increased the fruits. In the other study, they increased the fruits and vegetables to 10 servings. So this was, quite a few, 2, 4, 5, probably ended up close to, 8 servings of fruit. I just encouraged them to eat more vegetables also. So they, they had more vegetables, but this was the supplement part. The whole idea was to get their potassium levels up significantly. So sodium is one of those factors. And what we do know is, as you can see here, lowering the sodium intake by 2,300 milligrams a day can lower the overall blood pressure by 3 to 6 points. So decreasing sodium intake can have a blood pressure lowering effect. Some people are more sensitive to sodium than others. So decreasing sodium is probably a good thing to do. Now, most of our sodium is in processed packaged food. So if you did away with them, you would significantly decrease your sodium intake, or at least decrease it significantly. So the breads, the rolls, the pizza, cold cuts, soups, savory snacks, cheese, chicken, eggs, omelets. So these generally foods that are, have a lot of sodium added to that or a part of them. To begin with, cheese, chicken is actually, they add sodium to chicken. They may inject it with water, sodium solution to puff it up to make it weigh more, so they can get more money for it. Amazingly, adding sodium though. So this is one of the potential reasons for the higher blood pressure. So these are foods you need to be aware of, and you need to decrease your intake of these foods while increasing your intake of more whole foods, food as grown, your fruits, your vegetables that are not highly processed. Now, what's a rule of thumb? No more sodium than 1 milligram of sodium per calorie. So look at this can here. This is what you see here. Actually, that should have been down. Anyway, you see the 100 calories, and then you see the sodium. The sodium is 400. If you see that, I got my graphic off, but look at the can. At the top, you see calories, 100 calories. And you go down until you find sodium. You see sodium, and what does it say? 400 milligrams. So what you want is your calories, your sodium intake closer to your calorie intake. So 100 calories, look for sodium, 100 milligrams of sodium. So a 1-to-1 ratio. And the closer it is to that, the safer it is for you in terms of sodium. Now, you could take beans in this example, and you could wash it out, and you would decrease, a significant amount of the sodium. But in something like baked beans, you're not going to wash that out. Generally, people are not going to, you got all the sauce and all of that in there. So that's something that you're probably not going to wash off. Now, let's say the sodium was like 200. And let's say we're using beans as an example, and it's 100 calories. Well, you could get a low sodium or non-sodium, low sodium variety of beans, mix that to the regular, and you can cut your sodium in half. So you buy 2 cans, one no sodium, low sodium, one regular, and you mix the two together. You have twice the amount, and you cut the sodium intake significantly, right? So that's a way of decreasing sodium intake from a bean or a dish, in this example, a bean dish, where you don't necessarily want to wash out everything that's in there. Okay, so that's a tip to follow. Try to keep close to the calories, sodium, close to each other. That's a good way of judging sodium intake. Now, what's in vegetables that helps to lower blood pressure? Now, there's a substance called nitrate. And nitrates in vegetables have some amazing qualities. Now, in this example, we had 1 cup of beet juice. After 3 hours, it reduced the BP, blood pressure. That's what I mean by the capital B and P, by 10.4 and 8 diastolic. This is 1 cup of beet juice. After 3 hours, significantly lowered the blood pressure. Isn't that amazing? There's 1 cup. Now that was an experiment. So let's say, for example, now there's a reason for that, and it's the presence of nitrates, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But 1 cup of beet juice after 3 hours reduced it. Now I'm not saying that every day drink a cup of beet juice. No, I'm not suggesting you do that. But I'm illustrating an important point that drinking 1 cup of beet juice was effective. So let's say your numbers are pretty high, and you're doing what you can. It still seems to be pretty high. Add something like beet juice, and that may be enough to just pull it down. Obviously, over time, it's probably better to consume beets rather than just beet juice. Okay, but beet juice were effective in this experiment. 1 cup of beet juice after 4 weeks reduced blood pressure by 8.4. Now, this was an experiment one time. The second example was a 4-week study where 1 cup of beet juice was used regularly. So the average drop over a period of 4 weeks was 8 and 4, okay? But this one-time bolus after 3 hours caused that. Now, that will, of course, depends on how high it was, you know, and generally the higher the blood pressure, the more steeper the drop when we make lifestyle changes. So I don't know the details. I mean, I haven't looked at the details in specific. So rationale for why it would be that difference. Okay, so that's important to realize. So beets have something amazing. Now in the corner, top corner, you have spinach, and in the bottom corner to the right, you have arugula. Now all of those foods, these foods, have nitrates in them. Okay. And plants rich in dietary nitrates open up blood vessels and thus reduce blood pressure, okay? It results in the production of the substance called nitric oxide in the inside of your blood vessels, which opens up your blood vessels, relaxes the blood vessels. So if your blood vessels are relaxed, if they open up, then the work the heart has to do to push that pressure through, push that blood through is reduced, okay? So these are things that will relax the arteries. So the beets, arugula, spinach, those are examples. Now, here's a chart that gives you a good picture. These are dietary nitrates right at the top in milligrams per 100 gram of food. Now, you see the foods, you see the amounts, and you see the milligrams of nitrates, okay? So let's go right to the bottom. You see the second column, you see beet juice. You see 279 milligrams. Now, 1 cup of beet juice is equivalent to what? 250. Now, this was the amount associated approximately with that 4-week study where it was 8 over 4. So what we want is 100 grams worth of greens. And that's the goal, equals 4 cups. So 3 to 4 cups a day would give us that amount, that optimal level. And what we're looking at, the ones that gives us that optimal level are the arugula, the collards, and the spinach. Now, of course, if you have the arugula and the spinach, you get far more of these nitrates, right? So you don't need as much, all right? So collard greens is 320, right? Per 100 gram. Arugula is 450, and spinach is 750 milligrams. So the take-home message is collards, arugula, spinach, beets. That gives you the highest amount of these nitrates, which have a relaxing effect on the blood pressure. So your blood pressure is high, then make sure you have these. And if you do a smoothie, throw in these foods. Now, obviously, if you threw in some bananas with that and some dates with that, give it a little sweetness and increase the potassium levels, and throw in some handfuls of arugula and spinach and collards, you can see a blood pressure lowering effect. All right. Now, CoQ10. This is an enzyme the body actually makes. The body makes it as we get older, tends to decrease in the amount. Now, CoQ10 is potent at breaking lipid-soluble antioxidants. It's a lipid-breaking antioxidant with the ability to counteract the production of free radicals. It's a type of radicals, and you remember from the past time, it's like rusting. Okay, so if your arteries are rusted, right, they're gonna be stiff. Okay, so the coenzyme acts as an antioxidant, right? Now, free radicals impair nitric oxide, and nitric oxide through what we talked about, nitrates becoming nitric oxide, opening up the blood vessels. So free pro radicals, these oxidizing agents, these processed foods, what they do, create more of these free radicals, which impair the body's ability to create nitric oxide, which relaxes the arteries. So your arteries are stiff. So when you have like coenzyme Q10, it's a potent antioxidant, right? And so that helps with this nitric oxide, as well as the greens and the beets, helps with this nitric oxide, dilating the blood vessels, relaxing your arteries. So a meta-analysis, that's a number of studies combined together, use CoQ10 at a dose range between 35 and 225 milligrams per day, taken with meals. And the blood pressures were lowered by an average of 17/10. Okay, so this is with just the CoQ10. So here you go, you got CoQ10, you got the greens and the beets, you got the whole plant foods. We're adding up a number of factors. Now, please bear in mind, if you put all these things together in your own blood pressure medication, you're at risk for your blood pressures dropping too low. So you really need to check it and probably even connect with me if your numbers are really through the roof, and then we could help you in this process. Okay, so that's important, because we don't want your blood pressure dropping so low you faint out, then you fall and hit your head and cause a serious problem for yourself. All right, so don't just self-medicate. All right, get some guidance. Okay, L-arginine. Now, L-arginine is actually one of the amino acids. Amino acids, the building blocks of protein. Just like the letters of the alphabet form words, amino acids form different types of protein. So a different combination of amino acids. You got L-arginine, you got a number of other types of amino acids, and they come together and they form your nails. That's a different combination. Your hair, a different combination. Your skin. All right. So this particular amino acids is very high in your chickpeas, your lentils, your red beans, your soybeans, right? So L-arginine, 5 to 10 grams a day. That's in the supplement form. So I said, well, how can we get it from a plant version? So that's about 1 to 2 cups worth of chickpeas, lentils, red beans, and soybeans, or a half a cup of pumpkin seed per day. Lower the blood pressure, 6/7. Okay, so that's, it's not as significant as some other things. But what you can end up with is an additive effect. All right, you're doing a number of things, and you add them all together, the effects are even more tremendous. And that's probably why the studies with Dr. McDougall, so this massive drop in 10 days, because they were having lots of greens and the beans and the peas, and all of that are part of this lifestyle change program. So you got the benefits, and all of these things were being incorporated. Pumpkin seeds also were good for anxiety, and stress may be a factor. So it helps with boosting serotonin, the feel-good brain chemical, better than the tryptophan that we get from other foods. Tryptophan converted in serotonin has a nice relaxing effect on anxiety. All right, a food, believe it or not, just good old pumpkin seeds. All right. Flax seeds. These are, flax seeds are amazing. This is 4 tablespoons, 6-month study, 15 over 17 decrease. So these are people who had their blood pressure over 140 systolic. So this is a tremendous benefit just with flax seeds. So just think about it. You got 4 tablespoons of flax seed. You got a few handfuls of the greens. You follow me? All in this smoothie. You got some bananas. You got some dates or something like that. All blended up, and you got a potent anti-hypertensive concoction. Compared with ACE inhibitors and calcium channel blockers, these compared a placebo, that means the non-drug version versus the placebo, and this is the difference between the two. When you have the two, the effect of the drug over doing nothing, you can see a 5 points over 2.1, and calcium channel blockers 8.4 over 3. In the flaxseed study, you saw 15 over 7. Isn't it amazing that plants can have a dramatic impact on blood pressure? So here you go. And this is the graphs looking at the systolic and diastolic mean diastolic at baseline, 1 month, 6 month, placebo, flaxseed. And then you see the other graph here looking at those with the highest blood pressure, everybody together, and then those greater than 140 or 190. So the higher the blood pressure, the deeper, the lower the drop. Okay, so this is some amazing benefits, 4 tablespoons of flaxseed. Garlic is amazing. This was just 9 patients with severe hypertension, 5 hours. They gave them this 2,400 milligrams of garlic, 1.3% standardized allicin. This is a component within flaxseed. And actually, we do have that version at where I work. But just this was the impact of individuals who had severe hypertension. So let's assume that it's through the roof, you're taking medication, high dose, of good old garlic, plus, some beet juice. We're talking about flaxseed. These are things that might work. Put them all together. Now, I don't know too many people that would take the good old raw garlic, throw that in the blender and put some beet juice and all of that. It might not taste too great. But minus the garlic, all the other stuff should be okay. You throw it all together, blend it up, take a drink. And then I'll talk about a technique of deep breathing. Adding it all together, it's possible to see the blood pressure just come down. In fact, a water therapy, which I didn't include in the study, if you have a basin on one side and a basin on the other, and you have hot water in one and hot water in the other, and you put your arms in the hot water for about 5 minutes or something like that, and you take it out, dry it off. Just that could lower the blood pressure. And you dilate the blood vessels, open the blood vessels up, then what's going to happen to your pressure? Pressure's going to go down. All right. So let's go on. Garlic has amazing effects. It lowers platelet aggregation. That basically means clotting. And platelets are cells in the blood that clot. And it's a good reason for that externally. If you cut yourself, the blood needs to stop, right? And these platelets are what creates the clotting. Clotting on the outside is good. Clotting on the inside not so good. That could lead to a stroke or heart attack. All right. So think of the blood thick and syrupy, right? So garlic decreases the clotting, viscosity, the thickness, and increases fibrinolytic activity. It breaks up clots. Now, elevated fibrinogen levels associated with clotting is a strong risk factors for coronary artery disease. Okay, so garlic is good in some very important ways. Not only is it lowering the blood pressure, it's thinning the blood, and it's protecting you from heart attacks. So garlic's a good thing. A number of different studies have been shown, and some reviews don't show any benefit, and others show significant benefit. So this particular analysis of 11 studies showed an 8/7, right? Decrease in the amount, 600 to 900 milligrams. So you got garlic, you've got a number of things that we're looking at that may be amazing and beneficial. Now, hibiscus and weight loss. We're looking at both of them. Hibiscus flower reduced blood pressure, 17/12. That's an expressive drop. 193 participants in 10 trials. The average drop was 13/8. Okay, in 10 trials, and this was one study, showed a 17/12. And when you combine the effects of 10 trials, the blood pressure lowering effect was still significant. And the estimated therapeutic dose is 3 to 4 tea bags of hibiscus per day. So it's a potent blend. My suggestion is not to just focus only on one thing, is to combine a number of things that we've been talking about. So you probably would need the whole 4 tea bags worth every day if you're having 4 tablespoons of flaxseed and several cups of greens, et cetera, et cetera. That might really pull your numbers down. But you can always start at a lower amount, and of course, connect with me to be on the safe side. All right, so here you got it. 3 to 4 bags, grape seed extract. Amazing. Even the seed, high in those protective chemicals that relax, help with the antioxidant effect, and a whole list of amazing properties. So 300 milligrams of grape seed extract reduced the blood pressure 37/9. That was in a study, arm of 37 participants. 93% of these participants achieved normal blood pressure measurements in 4 months. That was just grape seed study. Now, 16 meta-analysis of 16 grape seed extract styles. That's 800 people. The average was 6/3. Okay, so we see some benefits, some amazing benefits, and of course, it all depends on a number of other factors. Why would one study show really great and then a meta-analysis show not as much? Different designs, different levels of blood pressure, different lengths, different diets and lifestyles, so multiple factors could influence whether or not something will be beneficial or not. So I'm sharing with you a ton of different things that may be affected. It's not necessarily necessary to add all of them. We can start with some basics, and then as if the numbers don't look really good, then just keep adding until things are looking better. All right, but get direction. Don't try to do it all on yourself, by yourself, especially if your numbers are through the roof and you're taking like 2, 3 or more medications. But if you're willing, we're willing to work with you. Weight loss, and here is the weight loss. So 1.5 over 1 for every 2 pounds of weight loss. So on average, every 2 pounds, you see your blood pressure drop 1 point. All right. So people who need to lose a lot of weight, and we gave you you have the whole segment on practical things to help with weight loss. All right. So go back to that if that's an area. So that's what happens. Exercise. The study conclusion involving over 37,000 participants. Exercise is just as effective as most blood pressure medications in lowering elevated blood pressure. All right, initially the blood pressure goes up if you're moving, right? And then right after it goes right down. Perfect health depends upon perfect circulation. You've got good circulation, the blood vessels are dilating, so the work of the heart goes down because now your muscles actually in your leg become a second pump. So they help pump the blood and the muscles contract, forcing blood back up to the heart. You just imagine the muscles contracting on the veins and forcing the blood to go back towards the heart. So now combining endurance exercise with resistance training is effective. So a little like push-ups is resistance, lifting a little weights, pushing away from a wall, all of those are resistance. And then walking, running, swimming are more endurance type, or what we call aerobic exercise. So regular physical exercise makes the heart pump stronger, pumps more blood with less effort. So this will lower the force on the arteries, reduce the blood pressure. In fact, the calf muscles, as I said, act like a second pump. So exercise, critical piece. Now, you don't want to be doing real strenuous, heavy weightlifting. That can drive the blood pressure up. And if you already have high blood pressure, that's a no-no. So you don't want to start with anything that is very strenuous, okay? Just good old walking will work fine. Exercise 5 to 7 days a week, 50 to 70% of maximal heart rate. For 30 to 45 minutes per session, and the average blood pressure drop 11/8. So you can see. Now, what is 50%? You can just jot this down. Take 220 minus your age, okay? So let's say you're 20. So 220 minus 20 is 200. And that is maximal. Well, so you exercise from what? 50% of that to 75%. So 100 times 0.50, that will give you your 50%. And 100 times 0.75 will give you the maximum pulse rate you should be exercising at. Okay, so you get your range, 50 to 75. You start out exercising, you go on 5 minutes, and then you check your pulse rate. And let's say 30 minutes, 30 seconds, go for 30 seconds, multiply it by 2. If it's between 50 and 75, you can stay at that rate. If it's not there yet, increase your intensity, okay? All right, water. When not enough water is consumed, the body attempts to secure its fluid supply by what? Retaining sodium. At the same time, dehydration forces the body to gradually and systemically close down some of its small blood vessels, which can put more pressure in the arteries, elevating the blood pressure. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Sunlight. Research shows that sunlight alters the level of the small messenger molecules, nitric oxide. We're getting back to them again. We looked at them when we talked about beets and greens. and CoQ10, right? So in the skin and the blood vessels, and the result is reducing the blood pressure. So your nitric oxide works better when you're exposed to sunlight. So get that sunlight. Temperance balance. This is an important component of the NEWSTART principle. 2 of coffee contain caffeine. A vasoconstrictor constricts it, narrows the blood vessels, increase the blood pressure temporarily. Okay, so you want to watch out for tea and coffee and caffeine, stimulants. And of course, diets high in fat and salt constrict blood vessels, increasing blood pressure. Fructose or sugar, that's usually in most of the sweetened beverages, high fructose corn syrup. It elevates a substance called uric acid, which drives up blood pressure by inhibiting nitric oxide from widening the blood vessels. So here you have it again. You know, these nitric oxide being influenced by what we're taking into the diet in a negative way. So let's get balance. Of course, overeating is going to add excess weight. That's going to cause blood pressure to go up. So we want to get ourselves in balance instead of picking ourselves up with some caffeinated type beverage, right? Eat right, get the right exercise, and you won't need caffeine. Caffeine acts like a stimulant. And the problem with the stimulants, they pick us up and then they drop us. But what we want is something that picks us up and balances us off. And there are things that do that. And we want to follow the NEWSTART principles. And if we do them, we won't need caffeine or tea to wake us up and to keep us burning the midnight oil. In fact, we don't want to do that. So we don't want things to keep us up so we can keep working while we should be sleeping. That throws everything off and potentially affects our blood pressure. Deep breathing exercise. Well, deep breathing stimulates blood pressure receptors in the chest wall and activates nerve reflexes that lowers high blood pressure and slows the heart rate. So deep breathing is an important exercise. Maybe I should be breathing right now. And an example of deep breathing is you breathe in, and now let's do it together. In fact, I've did this several times, a number of times with patients. They come in and we take their blood pressure first, and the number's high. And I say, well, let's do a little deep breathing exercise before we test it again. And in every case, the blood pressure was significantly lower. So, all right, you're sitting, relaxing, and let's breathe in slowly through the nose. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Okay, just a slow breathe in, count of 5, hold for a count of 5, breathe out for a count of 5. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Okay, deep breathing, wonderful tool for helping to relax you, helping that blood pressure to normalize. You can do that for 5 minutes, 3 times a day. Very helpful. Anytime you feel stressed, start deep breathing, and then breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. You can elevate stress hormones if you're deep breathing. Deep breathing has the opposite effect. So it helps a way of relaxing us when we're stressed. In a 12-week study involving deep breathing exercise, the experimental group's blood pressure dropped by 15 or over 11. Amazing. This is in one study. Amazing. So don't underestimate all the components of NEWSTART, our nutrition, exercise, our water, sunlight, our air. All of these things are potent and effective tools for helping to normalize blood pressure. Now, there is a machine called the RESPERT. I think I'm pronouncing it. RESPERAT. It actually has a belt sort of thing that you wear around it. And then it actually tells you how to breathe in and breathe out. Now, the overall evidence from clinical trials and meta-analysis where you combine the effect of multiple studies suggests this device-guided slow breathing can significantly lower blood pressure. In fact, it can also help with anxiety and other stress-related issues. They sell it on Amazon. The current price is $349.95. It's proven non-drug hypertension treatment. And so this is an example of something you could add to if you've tried everything else. Now, the average drop you see here is 14 over 8. Sustained average reduction in blood pressure. It was effective in both medicated and non-medicated patients. It was tested in the US, Europe, Middle East, and Asia, and no adverse reactions. And to the right, you see that little graph shows the effectiveness of this blood pressure method. If you go across on the bottom, you see a 0. And a 0 to 10 meaning no benefit. So everything is to the left. And you see that average blood pressure drop. And in one study, it was almost 20 points decrease. Probably because a higher number of the people had higher blood pressure to begin with. So this is a machine that teaches you how to breathe, deep breathing, so that you actually see significant lowering effect. And this graph here shows the effect of no use. And then you see average slowing breathing time per week. This is in minutes. So those who are practicing 25 minutes, 50 minutes, all the way up to 125 minutes. So the more minutes they did this deep breathing exercise, the lower the overall. So extensive use, you're looking at a 16.8 millimeters of mercury drop and no side effects. Isn't that amazing? So deep breathing works, and this is a machine that can help you to know how to breathe so that you can actually see tremendous benefit in that. And of course, rest. It is thought that sleep helps your blood regulate stress hormones. So in fact, if you don't sleep enough, you have higher levels of stress hormones just by insufficient sleep. And your blood pressure goes up with your stress hormone. So if you're getting regular sleep, you're going to lower the levels of stress hormone. And that's going to help your nervous systems remain healthy. And over time, a lack of sleep could hurt your body's ability to regulate stress hormones, leading to high blood pressure levels. So here's another key, getting sufficient rest. And of course, the last, and definitely not the least, is trust in divine power. To the right, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Are you stressed because you don't have hope? If you're stressed because of what life is putting in front of you, well, there's a way out. And God has a plan for you. He's able to keep you. He's able to direct you. and nothing comes to you that has first not gone through God. Who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which you are able, but will with the temptation make a way of escape. Listen, chronic stress, and particularly non-adaptive response to stress, are more likely to cause a sustained elevation of blood pressure by way of our stress hormones. Not getting enough sleep, not coping well with life stresses, all of these things, along with the nutrition and the exercise and the rest and the deep breathing, all are part of a comprehensive way of living that God has promised us, that we may have life and may have it more abundantly. So I'm encouraging you to apply these principles and experience tremendous healing benefits without side effects. Praise God. Remember, next week, before I end, of course, someone else will probably say this, 2 quizzes, but let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for an amazing program you've given us through NEWSTART, that we could see amazing benefits in terms of our blood pressures. Help us to apply these principles, get direction and support if needed, and experience a healthier, happier, more vibrant, peaceful life as we apply the principles you have given us. To this end, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Gibbons, for another powerful presentation. Thank you for the information, and we pray for the inspiration to put these things into practice. I did see some questions in the chat. Of course, questions will be answered by Dr. Gibbons next week. There's some questions regarding getting the materials sooner. I trust and pray that we can address that information. But again, we thank you for your attendance. Please keep in mind that next week, Sunday morning, Dr. Gibbons will be back with us to discuss preventing and arresting memory decline with age. I think I need to call my whole Manders family on that one. I will be listening attentively on that. And please don't forget, the first Saturday in September at 4 o'clock is when we plan to give you the certificates. Of course, we'll be able to see some of you virtually, but we're hoping to see you in the presence, in the physical space, in the Somerset Seventh-day Adventist Church, 4 o'clock on that Saturday afternoon to receive your certificate. And of course, those of you who have taken the quiz successfully will receive a basket of vegetables or a basket of fruit. And then, of course, we have some other things that we want to put in your hand. And it's going to be a little nice, sweet program at the end. So please keep that in your calendar and make every effort to be present. Again, thank you, Dr. Gibbons.
Yes.
And pray that all will have a great week. Any other announcement, Dr. Gibbons?
No, that's that. I know I'm going to be speaking on a Saturday. Maybe we can invite them on that date in person. Yeah. They can come. Yeah.
That's going to be the 29th of August. Thank you for reminding me of that. So 2 Saturdays from now, Dr. Gibbons himself will give us another free, inspiring message.
Synopsis, and bring it all together, all the principles. You don't want to miss it.
Beautiful, beautiful. For those of you who absolutely cannot get out, of course, the same platform you can visit and you will see Dr. Gibbons 11 o'clock on the 29th of August right there. But we're hoping to see your face in the place as we are practicing all the social distancing, the mask wearing, the keeping of our hands clean, and that kind of thing. So again, thank you for your attendance, and may God bless you to put these principles into practice so that we can prosper and be in good health, even as our souls prosper. Until next time, God bless you.